something that the church as a whole in recent history has fundamentally gotten incorrect is the theology of suffering. And maybe that's a discussion for a different time. But I kind of just want to share in this video my experience of, yeah, just like real suffering, because we all go through kind of some kind of suffering, right? And there's something different that happens when you're in a state where you're suffering so much, like all you can do is really just hold on to Jesus. And for me, that was my 2025. Like, that was the hardest year I've ever had in my life. And it's so interesting seeing how your relationship dynamic with God changes, seeing how you respond to suffering. It really tests your faith. And I'm thinking of that passage, I think it's 1 Peter 1 verse 7, where he says something along the lines of, our faith is going to be purified like gold. And this concept, it's a rife. This is why I kind of opened up with this whole idea of like our theology around suffering as a church just sucks, as the church, because from start to finish, I love Matt Chandler calls this the Bible a grimy book, and he also says like the Bible can kind of be summed up from Genesis to Revelation into 3 words: God with us, right? It can be summed up into Emmanuel, right? Like God is with us. It's kind of this story of how we relate to God as we go through things, and this concept of the Bible being a grimy book. Guys, if you haven't read, I mean, we can speak about like, what happened with Lot and his daughters in Genesis 19, but Judges, it's not Genesis 19, it's some Genesis somewhere, but Judges 19, that's worse than Game of Thrones. And if you guys don't know, Game of Thrones is, if you haven't watched it, like, yeah, just keep it that way, because that is a grimy show. But Judges 19 beats that. Like, it's grimy, and the whole Bible is grimy. There's not, and again, I'm just completely stealing from Matt Chandler here, where he says there's not a single kind of suffering you're going to go through as a human that is not there in the Bible, right? That's how great it is, right? But it's, again, also this theme of we're going to be suffering, but God's going to be suffering with us. And all of a sudden it kind of puts this perspective of, hey, Christianity is not this, cotton candy, happy-go-lucky like story to make you feel good about yourself and what life is going to be like after death and all that stuff. It's a real life. It's a grimy book, right? My friend always says, he wishes he could see like the Bible, like an X-rated movie, or like the Bible, like David was chopping foreskins. He went and killed 200 Philistines and cut off their foreskins and gave it to his future father-in-law. I think he gave it to Saul. That's crazy. That is insane. But even just apart from that, this concept of suffering, it's such a fundamental part in our relationship with God, right? And it's so interesting. We wish it wasn't like this, but you see it with the Israelites in the Old Testament, right? The Israelites do not do well with good times. They just never did. When things went well, they just turned away from God. And we're kind of the same. It was kind of like when they got to a point of like incredible suffering that they were like, God, please save us. And I wish I wasn't like that. I wish I was like, hey, God, like, you keep blessing me, I'll keep praising you, and you keep life being very easy for me, and I'm gonna continue to like just be consistent with my devotionals, carry on chasing hard after you. But that's just not how it works, right? There's a certain, as it says in Peter, a certain purification that comes from suffering, from trials, and there's a certain character that you just get, that gets built and forged as you go through the fire. But what I want to speak about in here is kind of how we respond to that, and it's such a fundamental part of our relationship with Christ is how we respond in a time of suffering. Now, something that's been obviously very prevalent for me this year has been the book of Job. Now, I read the book of Job earlier this year, like it was quite early this year. I'm not sure which month, but I read it and it was cool. Like, it was, okay, cool, I kind of get the gist of it. It's 40 chapters of, Job goes through some suffering, he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I shall return, blessed be the name of the Lord. His friends accuse him, he defends himself. He kind of complains a little bit to God, and then God is like, hey, where were you when I made the sun and the moon and the stars? And then, he restores Job's fortune afterwards and all that. And the whole story can kind of be summarized to like, hey, God knows what he's doing. Trust him even in suffering. Right? That was kind of the thing. Like, God is God, he knows what he's doing, we don't. But then I started going through early on this year, but I remember reading it again when I got to a point, it was like August, September, October, where it just got unbearable, man. It got so unbearable. And I remember starting to see things where I'm talking to people, and it's like I kind of saw like three groups of people. One was they thought my theology around suffering was like just wrong. Like they thought I kind of just believed life was supposed to be easy. This is the first trial I'm going through, and now I'm just suffering, which whatever. Then there were other people trying to give me like Bible verses. Where it was like, let me give you this Bible verse to encourage you. And it's like, again, that's not gonna do anything for me right now. Like I've read these verses, but anyways, by the way, like to try and encourage myself. It's not gonna help me, okay? And then the third one, like people try to give me practical advice. It's like, how's your time with God in the morning? Or have you tried doing this and that? And it all comes from a good place. I guess people who want to fix, like you give somebody, you present them with a problem. You're like, hey, my life just sucks right now. They want to help you, right? And they want to fix things. But it's kind of just like, hey, I've told you something I've been struggling with, and for me, this has been the whole year. I've told you something I've been struggling with the whole year. And you think in the 1 or 2 minutes we've had a conversation, you've come up with something, and you think I haven't thought of that. Like, just genuinely, like, just think about it for a second, right? It's like, that I found really annoying. And it was just kind of this concept of like, hey, I'm sharing that I'm suffering, but I kind of got to a point where I'm like, I don't really want to share this with anyone because no one really understands. Like, not anyone. There were a few people I could share with. Like, I had a couple of people who were like, they've either gone through, like I have a friend who went through articles and they just like struggled, and they was just kind of, we've been chatting like every week, and it was just kind of this thing of like, hey, I get what you're going through. It's going to be fine. And they give some encouraging verse or whatever it is, and actually helped. It was kind of just like, I was coming from a place of like, hey, I'm telling you this sucks. Don't try to give me some advice, or don't try to give me some and I'm not trying to downplay the power of the Bible, right? But like, again, trying to give me John 16:33, in this world you'll have troubles, but take heart, for I've overcome the world, or whatever it is. Or I remember 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13, this, and Paul says, damn it, it's slipping my mind. He says something along the lines of, God will not allow you to go through trials without giving you a way out. And he was trying to explain the thing of like, the way out doesn't mean a way out of the problem. It just means a way like to get through it, right? I misparaphrased that, but it was just, he was trying to point out that fact. Again, this typical thing of like, the Bible isn't you're not going to go through suffering, right? It's, again, God with us. It's not that you're not going to go through the valley of the shadow of death. It's that you're going to go through it and you've got him. And that verse is pointing to that. And again, it's like, cool, dude, I've studied that verse. I get it, but that's, I get it. It's not like my theology around it is wrong, right? And I just kind of got to this point where I'm like, I don't really want to share with like most people. I want to share with a handful of people who I know understand. And the people that I would speak with, again, it was kind of this thing of like, I get it, I'm sorry, it's going to be okay. That was just kind of the gist of it. That's kind of why I'm sharing. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. This just sucks. That's kind of the gist of it. And I remember reading Job the second time, and I remember reading chapter 1, and it's so interesting as well, where the conversation kind of just goes like this, God sees the devil kind of just roaming, and he's like, yo, Satan, what's up? And he's like, what's up? And he's like, what have you been doing? And it's like, oh, nothing much. I've kind of just been roaming around the world. And then God is like, have you considered my servant Job? There's no one more faithful than him. You should test him. That's kind of how the conversation goes. Go read it. Like, Satan doesn't do anything. Like, God is just like, go test Job. That's kind of what it seems like, right? And then Satan's like, oh, you've given him everything. Obviously, he's gonna like obey you and stuff. And then God's like, okay, I allow you to go take stuff from him. And Satan does. He takes so much from him. Takes his kids. Takes all of his stock, all of his, like, everything he has, all of his, like, everything's gone, right? And, that's where he throws out the, in this world I came with nothing, I shall return with nothing, blessed be the name of the Lord. And he handles it pretty well, right? And then Satan goes up again, and God's like, see, I told you. And then Satan's like, well, that's because you didn't let me touch him. You protected him. Obviously, he's fine. And then God's like, okay, you can touch him, but do not kill him. And that's when Job goes crazy, right? And that was something I noticed, and it started resonating a lot with his prayers. Like, again, the concept I spoke about in a different video, the concept of praying real prayers. Like, there's a part where Job is like, what does it profit a man to pray to God? Right? Kind of just do this concept of like, he's just going to do what he wants anyways. Like, he like, just why has he done this? It was, and I resonated so hard with that. I'm like, what's the point? Like, God, I pray to you to help me. It doesn't seem like you're helping me. I'm really struggling, and then again, there's these things that come in when you're suffering as well. It's like, I still want a wife. I still have never dated anyone. I still have never had any of that, and I want it. Like, there's stuff I want. You say no. I want to be in ministry. You say no. I hated you. Help me. You're not helping me. It's not getting easier. It's like you just seem to say no all the time, right? And that was I'm seeing Job say that. I'm like, yeah. At first, I'm like, he prayed that, like he said that. But I'm also like, yeah, I relate with that, right? And it's obviously it's beautiful seeing how the Bible works, right? Where it's again grimy, like it shows us how we go through the mess, shows us how to pray real prayers, but also how to respond to God, right? Because it's not just Job saying screw you, God. He's going to him and he's like, God, what the hell? It's like, why? Like this really sucks. And I remember reading that like all of a sudden that stuff was standing out to me. And I remember in Job 3, there's a part I highlighted as well, where he's like, cursed is the day I wish I was never born. And he's like, at least the dead, better a stillborn baby than me, because at least they don't they don't get to like go through the sufferings of this world. Something along those lines. It's like, I can't even get rest. When I go to sleep, you torment me with dreams, right? It's like, I'm resonating so much with all of that. And I noticed something I didn't notice the first time I read it, right? It was, Job was fine when everything was taken away from him. Obviously he'd been sad and stuff, but it was like, blessed be the name of the Lord. But when his health started getting attacked, that's when he went crazy, right? That's when he started saying, cursed is the day I was born. Why did you create me, man? I wish. And there's, again, another part that I also really, really resonated with, where he's like, what can I even say? What can I say to God? He's perfect. Like, even if I forgot the way he put it was beautiful, man. The poetry is beautiful. He's like, I have to contend to my accuser, right? Like saying God's hand is against me. You're the one who's fighting me. I can't defend myself, because if it's a contest of might, you're gonna win. If it's a contest of knowledge, you're gonna win. I can't contend with you. Who do I go to? You're the one who's afflicting me, right? Again, that's how I felt. I'm like, God, cool. Satan does things, or the enemy does things. Things happen, yada yada yada, right? But it's like, you're sovereign, right? Again, thinking of this Job story, it's like, cool, Satan was doing all these things, but it was God was letting him do those things. So it's like, I'm not contending with Satan. I'm not contending with the enemy. I'm not contending with anyone else. I'm contending with you, God, because you're the one who's allowed this to happen, and you're the one who's got the power to stop it, right? So it's like, he's like, how can I contend to my accuser? You're the one who's beating me, and you're infinitely more powerful than me. You're abusing me like a little child. I feel like a child being abused by his father. Who do I contend to? Again, just something else. I was like, I really resonate with that. I never saw that the first time, and the reason I picked it up, because I'm like, this is me right now, right? It was like, Job wasn't crying because his theology on suffering was wrong or whatever it is, right? Because again, first chapter he lost everything and he responded well, but when he got his health attacked, he responded badly because it was just unbearable. Like, that was just it. It was just unbearable. It just sucked. Like, it was like, I've got boils on my skin and all this stuff. It's like, I hate being here right now. Like, every second is torture. I want to be off this planet. Like, take me away, God. Like, help me, right? That's when he started just going crazy, right? And I'm like, that's how I feel. And again, obviously his friends were coming to him doing the thing that I was complaining about, where it's like they're trying to give him advice. They're saying, maybe there's sin in your life or whatever it is. It's like, no. Like, this just sucks, right? And anyways, kind of like tying this whole thing together, this whole thing about suffering, right? I remember listening quite a bit to Matt Chandler's podcast where he was speaking, because he went through cancer. Like, he was told, you got 2 years to live, and yeah, like, just that's kind of the way it is. And he really, like, he was struggling, like, again this concept of praying real prayers was kind of this thing again of, Lord, like, I'm not gonna, I'll say the prayer like, why me? Because who am I? Anyone can go, like, you're not special or anything. But it's like, God, I want to walk my daughters down the aisle. I want to help my son become a man. Like, just those honest prayers. And it's like, I really feel hurt. You've done this. And then there was a podcast where he was speaking about, like, he started seeing, like, again, the things of your heart really start to come out, right? This thing of, like, he was like, he knew a lot of people around the church, as a pastor of the church, he knows all the story, all the, like, struggles families are going through and stuff, and helping them through. And he was like, I know some really, really, really evil men here. Like, I know some men who are abusing their wives, who are cheating on their wives. I know people who've done some horrible things, and like, me, like, you want to take away me? Like, just again, that's the whole thing of, like, honest prayer. It's like, there's no point, like, just keeping that back. Like, you're not fooling anyone, right? But it's like, hey, I get to share this with you, God. But it's like I'm also seeing now, the rottenness of my heart, right? But yeah, this whole thing of suffering, something he complained about, again in concept to like people. Again, people mean well, right? But it was this thing of like he kind of saw two groups of people. One was kind of your typical charismatics, your people like the cotton candy prosperity gospel kind of thing, where it was like, hey, if you just have enough faith, you'll be healed, right? Which absolute nonsense, right? So that infuriated him. But he also saw another group of people who understood the sovereignty of God, right? But they didn't have the faith, right? So one side you saw the people who had the faith, but they didn't quite have a proper understanding of like, hey, God's got sovereignty, you could pray, and God can still say no. But now you got this side where they understand the sovereignty of God, and they're like, God can will for you to die right now, but they didn't have faith. Like their prayers were kind of like, God, I pray you heal Matt, but your will be done kind of thing. And he was like, that infuriated him as well, because like, there's no faith, right? And I started to understand this concept of like praying, right? And he's spoken about a way it's like you pray with an open hand, right? Open hand being I'm holding this dream in my hand openly, that like if you say no, I'm fine to let it go, right? So I'm having an open hand in that I understand you can say no to this and I won't be mad at you, right? But still praying with faith. The Bible still calls us to pray with full expectant faith that God will answer that prayer. And it's like, okay, so it's these two things working in tangent, that this is where like this is how prayer is supposed to work. And for me, I struggled with that this year. I think I've learned very, very clearly the concept of praying with an open hand. Right? It's like, okay, God, you said no to basically everything. I get it, okay? If I pray with something, it's not guaranteed you can say yes, because you got a greater will that I don't understand. But I'm struggling with this concept of, I'm still struggling to this day, I'm still struggling with this concept of praying with full expecting prayer, because my experience has been that you say no. That's what I've seen. This year you've just said no. And it's hard for me to pray with expectancy, because that hurts. I've experienced the hurt, and I'm like, I'm just tired, I'm disappointed. Again, the Job prayer, what does it profit a man to pray to God? Like, that's kind of how I was feeling, right? And it's like, I'm struggling with this concept now. Like, I get it, open hand. But praying with full expectant faith, I'm struggling with that. And it's something, guys, if you can pray for me, I'd really appreciate that. But like, it's something I'm struggling with. And it's this, I've learned this concept of like, prayer is supposed to be like that. Pray with full expectant hope that you're going to say yes. But if you say no, open hand. It's the whole Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego thing, right? Of like, our God will get us through this fire. He'll get us out of this fire. But even if he doesn't, we won't worship you, God. That's how we're supposed to be praying. For me, I've got this idea, like I understand, even if he doesn't, I won't worship you, God. That I've got down. But this God is going to get me through this fire. I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling to have that hope. Because that's something I've learned this year, is that your theology, or the way you respond to suffering, kind of shows how you think about God. And for me, it's very clear this year. It's kind of like, I see God as, you're a good father, I understand. You're sovereign, that I've got down. I don't see you as somebody that is going to say yes to what I want. Like, I see you do it for other people. I believe you can do it for other people. You do it for other people. I believe you can for me. I just, for whatever reason, I feel like you don't want to. That's how I'm seeing God, and I'm seeing that in my theology around suffering. And it's obviously, again, it's appropriate, going back to that whole 1 Peter 1 verse 7 thing of like trials and suffering purifying your faith. It's like, this is a purification thing. It's like, cool. Okay, this year I've learned the concept of an open hand, but now I need to learn to have that strong faith, that believe in God as a good father, even when life doesn't look that way. And yeah, you can speak about how you can do that. There's your typical things of like, dude, if you want to look around for blessings that you have, you will find them. And also just, dude, like, you go through tough seasons, like seasons change, and there's a season for everything. But yeah, I think that's very interesting, seeing how like our suffering is important for us to see how we actually see God. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think of the topic, and until next time, I'll see you guys.